All right, welcome to Social Distillation, the submarine still of the internet, where we attempt to drop the bead and pour white lightning straight onto your brain. Oh, what are we talking about today, Semo?
Well, we had a little miscommunication, but also this might be just a potpourri, anyways, because there's just so much going on, and we
Mm-hmm.
wanted to dive into the Durham report. And you've been reading through that. I haven't been.
Ugh.
I haven't been reading through that. I've been actually working on school stuff, which I am officially in. They send you a pair of socks.
Oh,
Yeah, it's nifty. Now they have a mascot. They didn't have a mascot when I was there. It was only a 2 year junior, senior, and graduate university. Now it's a full fledged 4 year and grad university, and I think they even have some sports stuff. No football yet, uh, but yeah. So I'm officially in, and I was doing all the registering for classes and stuff. Uh, we are in our miscommunication. I thought you wanted to talk about fun things, and I was going through my so when I'm having a few too many, and I'm sitting in my room just reading or watching random things like documentaries, I send myself messages if I have a thought because I know I won't remember them in the morning. And here's one you might like. Women practice mate switching because men die. Men live longer now. Fuck. That was my message to myself that I didn't remember I sent.
Uh,
Okay,
well,
so
you've kind of touched on that. That is going way back as a uh survival strategy, and it's one of those when you get into the weeds of the Old Testament is one of those things that looks weird until you think about what era, what time frame are we talking about here? What was going on? How were these people's lives compared to our own very modern, very cushy lives? That's why you have it in Hebrew law that if this relation dies, then this is who takes care of the widow. It is codified that this is how widows and orphans are taken care of. Well, we have a slightly different society now.
yeah, so those are the kind of the things I was looking. What is this? Hold on. Let's see if
Uh-oh.
this is something we can play. It looks like it's supposed to be something funny. Can we play videos from Instagram?
Uh, I don't see why not.
Okay, so the whole thing. Okay, so for those that watched the last cultural video, you notice there's a blip there where it like goes silent, and then it shows a little bit of a Twitter feed, and then we talk again, and it's almost like nothing's in there. But what we're talking about was a Saturday Night Live skit uh, with Dave Chappelle. And apparently SNL is really anal about that stuff because Tim Pool had an issue the other day too with trying to do a Saturday Night Live clip. So it's really confusing what we can play and what we can't. So
Hmm.
now, but what they do with YouTube is they say they block the video and say it's for copyright issues. So you have the chance to go in and fix it. Why don't they freaking do that for everything
Hmm.
instead of just sending you a no explanation strike? Because then even they could say block because of I don't know, something stupid like misinformation. Then you can look through the video and see what are the most controversial things we talked about, and we can cut those out. So I don't understand why don't they don't do that for everything, because that at least gives the creator a chance.
Hmm.
Yeah. So it would just be a lot better for the creators if we could do it that way. Because so many times it might be one word. You said the I word during the time you couldn't say it, or even somebody else said it. So I'm gonna go ahead and play this video because I can't remember what it is, but it might be funny. Uh, I didn't share with sound. Hold on. Share with sound.
No, I never felt like this before.
Oh my gosh.
Yes, I swear it's a truth. And I owe it all to you. 'Cause I had the time
This
of
is
my life,
hilarious, yet also
and
makes me want to
I
vomit.
owe
Okay, I think oh
Okay,
dear.
so the only thing that might come through there is all the names on the comments.
Yeah.
I have a problem with that. So If you see a little, I'm going to put jazz hands so I know where to stop it if I need to. If you see a little blip here, that means we couldn't share what we wanted to share. But it was
Well, we didn't play that long enough for the song might annoy whoever has the rights to that, but
I don't know if the
um,
username's showing up on the comments because usually when you
yeah.
copy and paste, well, because I've seen tweets where just people copy and paste them. So
Not quite as good as the uh NFL bad lip reading. Those are fun. Um, what was I saying? Oh yes. So before you interrupted me with lightheartedness, several people have been making this point, and I can't remember, who most prominently to credit them, but uh, you're supposed to give people the benefit of the doubt and not attribute nefarious motives to something that could just be incompetence. But I don't think that's the case with what you were just ranting about with YouTube.
mhm.
And I think that's a major reason that when Crowder moved over to Rumble and started setting up his membership thingy, however that works over there, that he exploded. And Russell Brand did the same thing even before that of, yeah, all right, I'm done. I'm tired of trying to jump through YouTube's hoop. I'm going to Rumble. Because what made YouTube big was your key word there, the creators. It was a creator-driven platform. Well, then somebody over there had the bright idea of making themselves a network. But not being a network is what got you big in the first place. So in order to try and court the big networks and the big studios, hey, come put your stuff here on this platform. I mean, for crying out loud, they have their own TV service now with YouTube TV. So they're not catering to the creators. Even though I would suspect that that's still the biggest part of their business model, even
Mhm.
though they don't act like it.
Well, what I wish, I mean, there's got to be a way to do this. Is all the legalese with the terms of service and everything, so it's ever changing, so nobody
Hmm.
can
Hmm.
pin it down. You should be grandfathered on the terms of service. It's the product. You bought a certain thing at a certain time, and of course,
Hmm.
we're the product ourselves. So that's the purchase we've put in. Our information goes into the algorithm and gets fed to the advertisers. But when you joined, whatever the terms of service were at that time should be what you're locked into. You can't just change the game.
Yeah.
It's like I signed somebody up for 3 months of training, hour-long sessions 3 times a week. Month 2, I give them a legal paper that says, well, it's only 2 times 45 minutes. You can't do that.
Hmm.
They purchased a certain thing. So
But
it's
you shouldn't do that. But if you have, this is the problem with the Federal Registrar growing exponentially because the laws and regulations are so convoluted that if you have a good enough lawyer, you can do whatever the hell you want. One of my long-standing gripes is the way uh, health insurance billing works. So you go to the doctor's office or to a clinic or whatever, and they say, okay, this is your portion, and you pay it. Except then you get a bill later that said, oh no, actually you owe this much because the insurance company only paid this much. That's like me going out to eat, and the next day, after I've already paid my bill, they say, oh no, we changed the price of our porterhouse and you owe us, $20 more. No, I already got the product. I already paid for the product. I already left the business. We're done. Our transaction is finished.
Lawyer McBeardy explained this to me. It's
Mm,
all a scam. It's all a scam. So, and it's actually both the government and the insurance companies with the way the
mhm.
law is written. Of course, the insurance companies are going to take advantage of the way the law is written. That's what
Yeah.
capitalists do. People call it evil, but the way you make something not evil is you change the game so the rules are not gameable. Uh,
Yes. Well,
but the insurance company gets paid on or they're only allowed to charge a certain percentage for premiums over what they pay out in payments. So obviously, if you're looking at a percentage, if my average payout per person on a policy is $100, I make $15 per person. If my average payout is $200, you say, oh, well, you're paying more per person, but I can collect $30 per person in premiums. So because it's a percentage, they actually want to get charged more because then they can make more money on the top of it. It has to be a fixed amount, or else it's never going to work, or it's always going to be this way. So that's part of the equation. So the insurance companies want to be charged more, but the other part is price setting. So what happens is they do that knowing they'll never get that money. So the hospital or the clinic or whatever has this extra bill that goes out. You go into mediation, the mediator says, oh yeah, you don't have to pay it, but the original amount they sent you is what sets the price, not what actually gets paid at the end of the day. And so that's what's reported to the state is that price that was billed out. So now they can charge that to everybody, including Medicare, because they're determining what they can charge Medicare and get money from the government. So it is a sick system that you can't help, but people were wanting to benefit from this when all of these things came through.
Well, what makes it extra insidious is, yes, a good entrepreneur is going to take advantage of the system to maximize his profits and minimize his losses. But what makes this situation so insidious is it's rigged because those same people, the health insurance lobbyists, are in there helping craft the laws in the first place so that they have a leg up on how they manipulate the system.
And by the way, this is actually fascism. This is by definition, this is what it means to be fascist, the way our healthcare system is set up right now.
Partnership.
It's not capitalist and it's not communist or socialist.
Mm-hmm.
It is a collusion between private industry and the government to jack up prices so the industry makes more and to actually line the pockets of the people in the government. So it is both ways. And also the higher prices are, the more government assistance adds to control of the people. So it's this is the definition of fascism. So for all of you, he's literally a Nazi. Yeah, here you go. Now talk to your local state representative.
Well, I'm going to swerve somewhere because I had a thought when I was watching some stuff, catching up on some things this morning, and this was big news a while back, probably before you started. Yeah, BLM, before BLM became what it was, BLM meant Bureau of Land Management. Okay. And so this came up during the Obama administration because there were they were painted as and they were a little nutty. I think they were in Idaho, this family, or in Nevada, I think, where they were having their land taken away from them. And so I had this thought, let me share.
Oh, sorry.
So, because you remember, it kind of came up again recently because of all the protests in Holland. And I've referenced these guys before. The guys that do the China Uncensored channel have an American focused news channel called America Uncovered, and they do a really good job. They do what journalism used to be, or supposedly used to be, which was, let's look at the issue, not let's talk about the narrative. Let's actually look at the issue. So they do a really good job of explaining the Dutch thing of what was going on there and where the narrative on both sides was a little bit skewed. And then they go into, there's been some kind of fear mongering on the right about how because of some things that John Kerry said about how the U.S. government is gearing up to do the same to America, to confiscate farms in order to meet climate change targets. If you've heard, if you're unfortunate enough to ever hear John Kerry speak, he uses the phrase net zero a lot. And, you know, us old geezers, net zero was a free way to get dial-up internet back in the day. That's not what this is. This is this insane idea that you will reduce your carbon outputs and have enough carbon offsets that your country will have a net of zero emissions. It's a ludicrous idea that I was meant to take a deep dive down into someday, but here's the problem, though, that they miss on this otherwise really good report, which is this map right here. All right, now this is a little old because it's the source is down there on the bottom. Uh, the U.S. GSA General Services Administration from 2004. This is a map showing how much of the states the federal government actually owns. And you see the Western countries, it's a stupid amount. For crying out loud, there's almost no Nevada in Nevada. Um, I have a story about this one too, because my parents went and stayed uh, with some friends who have a ranch in Montana, and they've been managing this huge ranch for 3 generations. But most of the ranch isn't owned by them. It's owned by the federal government, and they lease the land. So the fear mongering is annoying because the government doesn't have to go around confiscating private property in order to meet these net zero targets. All they have to do, and they don't even have to pass a law to do it. This is, again, the convoluted Byzantine nature of our bloated federal government. They just need a regulator to do it. They just need some bureaucrats to say, we have found this excuse to revoke your lease, or we are no longer going to renew your lease. And this isn't, you know, crazy conservative talk. They've already done it with oil and gas drilling. We've already seen it. It was one of the things that spiked prices when the Biden administration took over.
Well, how much of that is behind these extremely insane jacking up of our property values so our taxes go through the roof? We bought this house for what did we buy it for? 380,000. And it is now officially by the government worth 600,000.
Yeah,
That
this is
that's a couple years later. We just recently came across, doctor money. So in the obviously that doubles the taxes.
mhm,
And we're doing all the contesting that and everything, but if you don't contest it one year, then it sets the price for the next year to jack up.
mhm.
And we didn't do that the first one, so it went from 380 to 500 last year. And of course we were sitting on our thumbs, and so now we've got to fight it going to 600
Yeah, and
this
and the
year.
burden of proof is on you, which is bass backwards of
Mm-hmm.
how the legal system supposedly works.
Yeah, and if say I was an engineer and she was a nurse, that increase would have made us start looking at maybe selling and finding a smaller place, which is what they want because BlackRock's buying all the houses.
Mhm.
But it's yeah, so you're talking farmland, but there's a domestic version of that too.
Well, and this is where it's not all doom and gloom though, because that's actually something that the state has the power if its citizens push and push hard on their local and state representatives. Hey, why are you allowing this to happen? Don't
Well,
you represent us?
apparently Abbott's trying to push something through on that. So that's good news on his front. He at least he may be reactionary, but at least he listens to some
Yeah.
degree. So yeah, he's not the best, but he could be a
It's the
lot worse.
downside, but also the upside of being a Weasley politician
Mhm.
is you put enough pressure, you make voices loud enough, and they'll listen. But
I'm still torn on that because I mean he is a representative of the people, and if the people speak one way,
yeah.
you would kind of expect them to go that way. It's
Well,
just you don't want that to fall into the minority voice
mhm.
being so loud, the Twitter voice influencing the opinion. You want it
And
to
yeah,
actually be the voice of the people he's representing. But
and then you get Anheuser-Busch, which is hilarious. But so the thing about the state power though is th this is where I think some of what Texas has done has been the wrong tactic, which is suing the Biden administration, taking the Biden administration to court. I wouldn't do that because the court system is rigged. The court
Mhm.
system is going to favor the federal government.
Yeah, but they actually this is a little bit sleazy, but be careful what tactics you use because they will be used against you. So they're using a little bit of a Me Too tactic here. The accusation matters as much as the
Mm.
actual judgment. So to keep pushing these things, it still makes the news. And so we still get the states are fighting this for this reason. Now it doesn't hit it as hard because it's the not news friendly side of the aisle, but at the same time, that part of the tactic is just the awareness.
But a better tactic, because not only would it raise the awareness of suing the administration, the federal government, but it would also create tangible, to your point about the stupid property taxes, is setting the benchmark. Don't sue the government, make the federal government sue you. Just pass a law saying, okay, this is what we're doing, and start doing it. You
Uh,
know, no,
don't ask for permission, ask for forgiveness instead of permission. That one.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
is the Texas, Nevada, all those states that I showed, their legislatures should be passing laws saying, no, we are a sovereign state, and unless it is land that is actively managed by the federal government, i.e., federal parks like Yellowstone or military installations, those are actively occupied and managed by the federal government. We're taking this land back. This belongs to the state and the people of that state, not the federal government. Make them make put the onus on them rather than uh having to go into a federal court that's going to be rigged against you, that's already going to be biased against you.
Well, I think part of the strategy is, especially with Texas and Florida, and to some degree, was it Missouri that brought the thing about the COVID mandates? I think it was
I think they
Missouri.
were one of them. Yeah.
Yeah. Uh, they're kind of also banking on the highest of high Supreme Court as coming in on their side after they've gone through failure after failure after failure after failure to get to that point. So,
well, but and I'm no legal expert clearly, but I have heard uh lawyers and legal experts talk about this. There is a problem with that though, because ultimately what the Supreme Court says is the final say judicially, but all of those uh all of those lower court findings and rulings, they can set precedent for
this is
later
true. Yeah.
because that issue can come back up and a court can refer to that and say, well, the court said here this and I think they were right, so we're gonna refer to that.
Yeah, it's yeah, again, we're not lawyers here, but you would think on the flip side of that, the opposing team, whether it's the offense or defense, there can say yes, but that was overruled by the next higher court. So it's yeah, again, that process frustrates me, and I think it's part of the problem, but we'll see.
All right, so I want to swerve again because we're just potpourriing anyway.
Well, I thought that maybe would be a good segue into the Durham stuff, but where are you swerving to now?
Nah. Um, well, if we're gonna call that kind of possibly good news on the political front, potentially something that can be positive at least. There's a there's a potential positive on the pulp culture front.
Okay, before we go on, I came across something really fun, and it plays into everything we're going to talk about, because we just talked about two situations where the people that should be taking care of us to some degree because we pay them to have misled us and misdirected us and thrown off, with a thing called the Gell-Mann amnesia effect. And the way it came about is this physicist Gell-Mann was reading through the paper, and he came across an article about something physics related, and he said, that's completely horseshit. That is complete bull crap. But he believed everything else in the paper. But the
Hmm.
thing he knew a lot about, it was complete hogwash. And so Gell-Mann amnesia is when you see something that you know is complete, horse crap, but it's something you know about, but then you go to all the other things and you assume you're being told the truth.
Hmm.
And so we just discussed two situations where we're not being led straightforward: medical billing and land ownership.
Mm-hmm.
And we're been given this load of bull crap. And we've discussed ad nauseum about treatments and uh, all kinds of things, systemic this or whatever. They're all hogwash. We just only know certain things about certain ones of them. And so that's why we're trying to pull them together. But even we have limited brain power. So, I've stuck to mostly the physiological end. I can speak on, the fat phobia front, for probably another 350 episodes. If we wanted even fresh material in every one, it would still get redundant, but at the same time, it would be new every time because that's what I do. And but yeah, the Gell-Mann amnesia effect is where the thing about, you're like, oh, that's crap, but then you believe every other line, when realistically you should be like, wait, that was wrong, and this other thing I know about was wrong. Maybe everything else might be. And now you start your baseline being skepticism, and then everything above that is a pleasant surprise, right? What is it? Plan for the worst, hope for the best.
Mm-hmm.
That used to be a saying, and I think that's a good way to live life. I've always lived in Murphy's world. Murphy has ruled everything. That's why I got so good at adapting to anything.
Um, this that actually ties in to where we are on our Wheel of Time episodes, because something we were just talking about
Oh, I started
in
rewatching the series last night.
yeah, that was
I've got new notes because
mm.
you just noticed different things, and it was just like something jumped out at me, and I'm like, oh God, it's even worse.
So something Maureen thinks about and talks about from her perspective in that first third of New Spring is that so often authority comes from people thinking that you're in charge, you looking like you should be in charge. And specifically, when we're talking about a kind of medieval fantasy setting, that means dressing in finery. That means looking good, because only someone wealthy, only powerful people can become wealthy, and wealthy people dress and act a certain way. So that actually correlates to a lot of big business nowadays, which is why you're supposed to have earnings reports and, you know, transparency in certain things. Now, obviously, your proprietary stuff, your business secrets are your business secrets, but when it comes to the finances, that's supposed to be open because you are a publicly traded company. If you are not open about your finances and people are buying your stock, then you're perpetrating fraud. And Disney's a great example of this because they've been doing that for a while now, and it's finally looks like it might be coming in to bite them. And I'm not even talking about have we follow different news, so have you heard that Disney is being sued by a group of investors?
No, I don't. I haven't.
Okay. I'll bring that up here in a minute, but Disney is being sued by a group of investors, Disney and the former CEO Bob Chapek, and I think the former CFO, for shifting costs around so it looked like Disney Plus was doing well. And then people have been saying for a while now, oh, those numbers are fuzzy. Those don't make a lot of sense. And there's just some common sense looking around that would tell you like that. Like, how many times did you see a phone commercial that said, sign up now and get a free year of Disney Plus? So they're able to pad their account numbers, but how many of those accounts are actual paying customers?
Hmm.
So how much money are they losing? And now they they don't even have the corporate media in the bag anymore. Okay? Because the corporate media have been covering for them for a while now, and they were they were so high on this Indiana Jones 5 movie that they showed it at Cannes and they didn't have a review embargo. So now they're going to have 6 weeks of it's hard to find a press outlet that is more in line with Disney's political ideology than the BBC. And their headline is Disney Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny review, gloomy and depressing final act.
I
And
haven't
they
seen it, but I saw a meme that was, and I'm guessing it's actually part of the movie where he says, "Yeah, but I killed Nazis," and she goes, "But you stole from indigenous people."
I think that's a real line.
Yeah.
That is meant to be, serious. And I think from some other things I've heard and read that a lot of the a lot of the laughs were unintentional because of things like that. Um, and they have some fairly amusing, hard-hitting things in here, like comparing it to The Force Awakens and not in a favorable way. So now they're even going backwards and saying, that thing that made over $1 billion? Well, yeah, it wasn't actually that good. You just hyped it because it made a lot of money, and you ignored the fact that the third installment made literally half what the first did. So, like another of Ford's so-called legacy sequels, Star Wars: The Force Awakens, this one brings back old characters. John Rhys Davies Sala has a pointless cameo. Ouch. Introduces new ones who are strangely similar to the old characters. Ethan Isidore plays a substandard copy of Short Round from Temple of Doom and has the air of a film passing the torch or whip to the next generation. But it does all this in an even gloomier fashion than The Force Awakens did. I'm not sure how many fans want to see Indiana Jones as a broken, helpless old man who cowers in the corner while his patronizing goddaughter takes the lead. But that's what we're given, and it's as bleak as it sounds. Reportedly, this movie has undergone extensive reshoots to the point that whatever they say the budget is, it's probably significantly more than that. And I've heard estimates as high as 300 to 400 million dollars in production costs. And for those who aren't nerdy and in the know, when you see the box office returns and then you look at the budget, you say, "Oh, well that made triple the money." No, 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 no. Movie theaters get about half of domestic box office returns, and they get about a quarter of international box office numbers. So that's how you have to figure it up. And you have to look at the budget and say that's at least double because of marketing costs.
Mm-hmm.
So if your budget is $600 million when you factor in marketing, and you're only going to get half the domestic and a quarter of the international, you've got to make well over $1 billion to just break even. And you don't make a movie like this. You don't scavenge the corpse of an existing franchise like Indiana Jones just to break even. That's why they make these kinds of movies, or at least used to, is you do the big summer blockbuster to fund the other things that you want to make.
Mm-hmm. Oh. They say it's not true, but the they is skeptical. You should be skeptical about. They say go woke, go broke,
Mhm.
but we're seeing it.
Well,
It's
so I think I've mentioned them before. There's a channel called Midnight's Edge that and this is what I've mentioned before. I hope we can bring something new and interesting. And it's not just that they talk about um pop culture. Um it's it's the angle he comes from. So besides having a funny accent, because I think he's Norwegian, um, the guy who started the channel, who's the main guy behind the channel, comes from finance, like high finance. So he knows what he's talking about when it comes to big deals. Well, so he had a good video. I think this is it. I'll just show the uh I'll just show the opening here so that you can see, you can go check for yourself, and check this out. Um, because he talks about how using Anheuser-Busch, using Bud Light as a model, not focusing on it specifically, but explaining why they would do something like this. Like uh we mentioned Gad Sad when this Bud Light thing first started, because that's where he comes from, is analyzing human thought for marketing. And he went through the technical aspects of this literally makes no sense from a marketing 101 point of view. Well, uh the guy at Midnight's Edge, Andre something or other funny Scandinavian name, uh explains, well, this is how it works. And a lot of people don't realize this, that they think, oh, well, if you're a company like Anheuser-Busch, you just have a vault full of money like Scrooge McDuck that you can go swimming in. No, that's not how finance works.
It's also
So
not how shareholders work.
it's not how shareholders work. It's not how, you know, um, well, we've ranted about this before because you're a small business owner, and so you can have a very successful business, and oh, well, you're a millionaire because you have a small business worth $1 million. No, 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 no. The business is worth $1 million. That doesn't mean you make $1 million. So companies that work in the tens or hundreds of millions of dollar range, they work on uh uh lines of credit. You've probably heard that term, especially hear it thrown around in, in media, because if you've got $100 million deal, but that money doesn't come in until Friday, but your payroll is due on Monday, and you employ 100,000 people, though that doesn't add up. There's an imbalance there. Well, but someone like Anheuser-Busch, who's one of, if not the biggest brewer in the world, well, not Anheuser-Busch, the Belgian company that owns them, you can go
InBev.
to InBev. Thank you. You can go to, the the Bank of London and say, hey, we need a line of credit for $20 million to meet these expenses. We've got this $100 million deal coming in on Friday. No problem, because you're the biggest brewer in the world. And we know that if you've got this deal coming in, it's gold. It's good. So they have no problem extending that line of credit. What has been happening behind the scenes that the regular people are just now hearing about, is those creditors, not the government, but the creditors have been saying, and this goes back to your point about the fascism of the public-private partnership, is now the private started enforcing this first, and now the government's coming in and joining the party. Is now the Bank of London tells InBev, okay, but we're a little concerned because you haven't uh you haven't been vocal in, it's Pride Month, and we want to see you do something to help this marginalized group. So they put uh they put the company in an impossible situation, a catch-22. Okay, well, we can either piss off our customer base and threaten our future sales, or we're insolvent right now because we have this imbalance and we cannot meet it without a line of credit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Did you see the new Miller Lite commercial?
You mean the old one that they tried to scrub? The feminist one,
They
about
tried to
how
scrub
off.
it.
Yeah, that's how it was found. So this actually came out in like early March, I think it was. It was whenever Women's Month was. That's what it was
Mm-hmm.
for. That's what they put it out for, is for Women's Month, which I believe was March. And then after the Bud Light catastrophe, they tried to scrub it from the internet. Well, if you know anything about the internet always wins, and that's just going to attract attention. That's what it did.
Okay, so I had it queued up just in case, but oh, it's so bad.
There's
Uh,
there's a part of it there was a moment there where I actually thought, is this being subversive? Because the obnoxious lady, so-called comedian there is ranting about how awful it was, that they sexualized women, and there's all these chicks in bikinis behind her, like all these the old ads, and I'm like, you're showing an awful lot of what you're saying is awful. Is this tongue in cheek? And then it just kept going, and I said, oh no, this is not tongue in cheek.
well, Brianna Joy Gray tried to defend this because she's like, well, why can't they market to this crowd? Da, 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 da. It's not that they market it to women. It's that they shit on the other people they market to. That's the whole point. That's what I wanted to scream, because Robbie
Yes.
wasn't doing a good job of pushing back on her, and I wanted to scream at the screen. It's if you have a male friendly ad and you decide to run an ad campaign that's female friendly, that's one thing. That's okay, because you're actually trying to bring more people into your market. That's perfectly fine. It's the fact that they just took it on overdrive of, yeah, and all you that liked this other marketing, y'all are pigs.
Well,
That's where it went wrong. Just like with the Mulvaney thing, it was the statements about we need to get away from our frat boy roots, and
yes.
all. That's what's wrong with it. If you wanted to do a Mulvaney can, and you know what, we're trying to bring in this group of people, but you still had your other stuff. Realistically, anybody who complains about that is probably a bigot. So, but if you wanted to do this thing to celebrate, to basically push away the other market, you deserve what you get. If they start showing DIY TV and dog shows at Twin Peaks, people are going to stop going there, even with the good looking waitresses. It's they go there to watch sports and look at girls. That's why you go. And
Cold beer.
and the loss of that market share is going to be what causes them to change their ways. And that's what happened with Bud Light. And Miller Lite should be if it's an ad campaign to
Yes.
appeal to women, do it like a Fabio romance novel or something, or even the hardworking woman coming home and cracking open a Miller Lite, right? That would be perfectly acceptable because it's bringing new people into the market without pushing away the old market. You can do both at the same time, and these companies can't realize this because they've got a message.
Couple of things that 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 really shines a light on what the article I just read, because it's not that you brought in this incredibly overrated, so-called writer and comedian Phoebe Waller-Bridge to play Indy's sidekick and apparent heir apparent. It's that,
You pushed
as
out
the
the old indie, and you
as the article said, he's
infantilized the old.
cowering in the corner while his patronizing goddaughter saves the day. You couldn't just make her great too. You
Mm-hmm.
had to push him down. You had to make her great at his expense.
Yeah, that's the problem. Same with She-Hulk. It wasn't that she
Yep.
was learning lessons and becoming a great person. It was that she was pushing him aside and beating him down to be a great person. And that's not a great person. You may be a powerful person, but powerful and great. Let's look back at history and look at all the powerful people that we consider not very great right now. Stalin, Hitler,
I mean, heck,
Gaddafi.
Churchill. You read some of Churchill's things, and you're like, oh man, yeah, he was kind of racist, especially the way he talks about India and the colonies. Then as great as he was in so many other areas when it came to, bringing Great Britain together, staunchly opposing Hitler and saying, no, there will be no appeasement this time, but he was still a man. He was still human, and that meant there were still problems.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah, I watched that documentary series. It was Becoming a Tyrant.
Becoming a Tyrant. Okay.
Yeah, that was actually quite good. It was actually quite good. I like the way it was set up, and Dinklage is a good narrator. He can take over for Morgan Freeman as Freeman retires, as far as I'm concerned.
He really knows where to put the snark,
Mm-hmm.
and it's subtle snark too. which is what makes it so good. It's a very dry, dark humor, which you need for something so heavy.
Mhm.
You know,
And I
the
think
stuff they're talking
it was quite a bit. It was very much politically neutral, even though they were
about.
talking about political figures, and I really liked that. So
Shocking, yes.
yeah,
It's
shocking,
almost like
amazing how you can make a good product if you just take your ideological
mhm,
bend out of it, so you can
mhm.
appease to everyone. Yeah, I was going to transition to exactly what you said when I was talking about that. You can market to one crowd without pushing the other crowd away by going back to indie and saying you can have indie still be the badass, but still bring in the new thing.
Mhm.
And
Eh,
in fact, they did it with indie when they had Sean Connery as his
yes,
dad, and he was coming in as the young person, even though he was already established as a character.
yes.
But they still did that thing where Sean Connery was still pretty cool.
He's freaking James Bond,
Yeah.
and so it's you've got a established actor there who brings a lot, of expectations to the table, and they met those expectations by having him be a fully realized character, and neither was at the other's expense. They, you know, uh, that's a great example because uh Indy risks his life. He goes in to save him, from that castle there, and his dad is kind of, you know ungrateful to an extent because he's not doing it the way, dad wants it done. And so he's got his flaw there while Indy is shining. But then Indy gets a little arrogant of, you know, no, I'm not going back for your stupid book. And this is where, he needs to listen to his dad because, no, I'm telling you, this is important. So they both have their moments to shine and they both have their imperfections.
Mm-hmm. Which is, we're both dads, so that actually that hits home to some degree because
Mhm.
parents don't want to hear this, but after about 4 or 5 years old, your child is actually raised by their peers and their peers' parents more than you. So the best thing you can do for your child is make sure they're friends with people with cool parents, with
Mhm.
upstanding parents. And actually, I was talking with a client this morning about this same thing. It's funny it came up because I was like, maybe that's why I actually came out okay. Because as shitty as my home life was, I had great friends with great parents. And that's probably what developed me to
Mhm.
be an okay person, even though being at home sucked. And you can see the reverse of it, where at home is like leave it to Beaver, and the kid still turns out,
That's a good point.
the other way. So but then there's a moment in that development when the kid becomes an adult that they all of a sudden appreciate dad and mom again. And that's where we were with the indie story, was we're at that conflict where
Mhm.
he's coming back into the fold to be dad again in the kid's eyes, but there's still that conflict there, which is a very real thing. And you're getting to that age with your kids, and I'm at the beginning of the dad knows nothing age with my kid. So it's actually, I'm going to talk to the strength coach of our school system here in a couple of weeks to basically pass the torch like I've been passed to me from strength
Mhm.
coaches to train their kids, because dad knows nothing. He's all yours right now.
Mhm.
And so I got to go talk to the guy's nickname is Tugboat. So apparently a pretty good wrestler. So I hope he convinces my son to try that out. But uh,
It's it uh grappling of some sort is something that everyone, especially every young boy, should have to do at least for a little bit because you learn a lot about yourself when you're getting your nose shoved into a mat.
yeah,
And it's
well,
gonna happen.
yeah, you learn that life is always trying to kill you. and you have to know your own body so well that you can handle somebody else's body. And that's an amazing skill to have.
Mhm.
uh
Mhm.
but yeah, it's that back to the subject, it's that age that between about 5 and 20, maybe 25 for boys because we develop a little later, that your parents are the last person you want to listen to. And as a parent, you don't want to let go of that, but at the same time, you can indirectly affect it because you can you can kind of determine who they're around. And his best friend actually has really cool parents, so I'm good with that. And his best friend's like one of the most positive kids I've ever met. He's
You
like,
know,
it's a
there's
great
a
day today. I hope you're having a great day.
you've just made me think. To I had two thoughts with that. Is the first one, the negative one, was when you brought that up. Is yeah, that makes a lot of sense. It also explains how you can get pockets of generational um, poverty and dysfunction when you have areas that are 70 to 80% single parent households. Well, that means
That means your kid
every
is 70 to 80% likely to be hanging out with someone who's in a dysfunctional situation. Now,
exactly.
here's the counter to that, though, is at an early age, you instill on your kids the empathy to see a dysfunctional situation
Hmm.
and bring those kids into your fold, which is
Hmm.
kind of what you did, your family did with me. Y'all identified a dysfunctional situation and y'all brought me into the fold. I wasn't a perfect fit, but it was something I needed at the time.
Yeah.
And had I brought you into my fold, I mean, what would we could speculate all day what would have come out of that,
Hmm.
you know? But at the same time, I didn't want anybody to come home with me, so it's actually more likely to flow in the other direction.
Yeah.
It's the hubs are going to be around the functional situations because the dysfunctional, they don't want anybody to be around it because they know something's wrong.
So the other thought I had, and this is kind of more in your wheelhouse and maybe might get your gears turning, or maybe you've read on this. I wonder if in generations past that rebellious teenage years was kind of nipped in the bud because you had to grow up so much earlier. When you got a job and got married and started your own family, that's going to accelerate that process of, oh, my dad's not an idiot, because you're going to see it for yourself so much sooner.
Which my problem was I had to develop even earlier than that, and it actually reinforced how bad the
Mhm.
male role models were in my life. Because you see, you never met my real dad, but they were the two ends of the spectrum of dysfunction. My real dad didn't have a violent bone in his body, uh, but he was a con man, and he was like a dandelion of sorts from The Witcher. He was a charmer. Wasn't good looking at all, but he could charm the ladies. But he was smooth with his tongue. He could play the guitar, which bumps you up I think it bumps you up 2 points on the 1 to 10 scale. I think that's actual
Mhm.
literature. It bumps you up 2 points on the scale. And I mean, what's the phrase? He could sell ketchup popsicles to someone in white gloves. It's that was him. But then on the other end of the spectrum, you have a guy with no finesse, very little intelligence, but as violent as can be. And he was built like a gorilla. Uh,
Mhm.
he still is, as far as I know. And you had two ends of the horrible dad spectrum, and the exposure to all of it was very cynical in the way you grew up. But then I met your family, and it was like, again, the beaver cleaver, kind of setup. Not
Mhm.
exactly, but you mean everybody like hangs out when they eat, and everybody like talks about their day, or you mean they actually support you when you do something? It's and this is not my mom's fault. She was under a tyrannical rule. So,
Mhm.
I do want to separate that. And I completely understand it. And it's actually why we have this channel, because we're actually fighting that on a meta scale
Mhm.
to some degree. Yeah, I know I see it because I lived it. And so it's really back to our conversation. When we're in that stage of our life, who you're around is better than what's at home. Especially since, like in your case, you pulled me from what was at home.
Mhm.
You helped me get away from it for a little while. It actually improved my negotiation standpoint, because when you were stuck at home, it was the law. But when I had an option that I could leave, it actually gave me leverage to get back into a slightly better situation than I was in before. Now it led to blowups later, but that's neither here nor there. But at the same time, options give you leverage. That's what people can't understand about this whole authoritarian government thing. Freedom gives you leverage, because if you have a better option, you will take it, and then they have to adjust their option to keep you. We went way far afield on that, but
we said we were gonna. And look, that's the point of what we try and do is when we talk about a thing, it's not the thing. The thing is the example. For the bigger idea, at least. Hopefully that's what we're getting at. I mean, heck, even when we talk something as basic and direct as fitness, it's not just that. It's you need that so that it can help put your mind in a better place, so that it can help you, get into a routine and get it, good habits and break bad habits. These are it's more than just the thing.
Well, so Jehovah's Witness will call this evidence of God. But one of my themes with all the things we talk about and how we can cover so many broad subjects is, in complex systems, everything's the same. It's just a different language. Fluid dynamics is the same. If you look at a river tributary, you look at the veins and blood vessels in your arms and legs and body, and you look at a leaf. They're all the same because they all are governed by the same laws. You look at the human body exercise and how we stimulate and create stress to enhance the body, or it can end up breaking down the body, or in all these ways. It's exactly the same in psychological state. It's just a different language. It's exactly the same if you call the entire country a complex system in economics. It's just a different language. And we talk about a completely different language. One of the things that got me interested in listening to legal experts is it's exactly the same. It's just a different language. So all I had to do was learn a little bit of their language to understand that all of these things are the same. Now we've got to take those patterns and say, why are we dysfunctional, or why are we functioning? And let's increase the functioning and let's decrease the dysfunctioning. And then let's find the stuff in the middle we can play with, because we're human beings and we have cognition above just function.
Mm-hmm.
Which you'll appreciate that statement, because you're always like, we're not the sum of our parts.
Yeah. But to your point, that's where we kind of sink, is we're not the sum of our parts because complex reasons. Yeah. ... Dang it, I was looking for something and I can't find it. That link don't work anymore.
If you can make money at it, I would go back to school for philosophy, but unless you're Chomsky and you're getting Epstein money, you can't make money from it.
Isn't it interesting that that's the nugget that comes out? Who broke that story? Did you see?
I saw it on Rising the Hill.
Okay. So I can't remember who broke this story, and it's at least partially confirmed, because a spokesman for Gates came out with a statement and said, this is what happened. There was no nefariousness because. So it's at least partially confirmed, and it's just interesting to me that this is really the first nugget, because you've had all this speculation about, based on the flight logs or secondary sources of this royal or that big businessman or this politician, and all of this, for the most part, pure speculation of who was involved and how much were they involved in Epstein. And this is really the first kind of solid nugget to come out of that. And I find that very interesting.
So I started following on Twitter someone called Jeffrey Epstein News, and they said they're going to start breaking the news at a certain day. And today was the first day. And yesterday was the first day. And the one that was yesterday was one that came out in that first list. with Chomsky. Meet William
Mhm.
Burns. He was the director of the CIA since 2021. He had at least 3 meetings with Epstein. He was Deputy Secretary of State then, and he met Epstein in Washington multiple times and at Epstein's house in Manhattan. And then today's was meet Hassan al-Bakri. He was the Sultan of Brunei. He met with Epstein with Bill Clinton. He was in Epstein's little black book. And he was sued by Miss USA in 1997, who alleged he was Bolkai's sex slave. And then the suit was dismissed based on sovereign immunity from his country. So those are the two that are out according to that. I don't know what
All
the
right.
credentials are of this site are, but
Did you watch this? I think this was Monday. So
I have
I
it
only
on.
watch
I have it
Timcast
on
every once in a
my.
while.
Yeah, I have it on my watch list.
So Bongino put a couple of clips from the show up on his channel. So I've watched some of the clips from it, and it's um I would call it explosive, and I don't think that's an exaggeration at all.
Okay, so I'll
Of
I'll put those on my watch list for tonight. So.
so I go watch the full thing or go to Bongino's channel on Rumble and watch the clips because he makes some very specific accusations about Clinton, about Bill Clinton, and about Epstein. And he's using anonymous sources, but uh where he comes from, having been a Secret Service agent for two administrations, he's connected with federal people. And so I think he's a pretty darn credible source. So if he says, I got this from someone who I don't have permission to use their name, I believe him, and I believe that he thinks it's a credible source or he wouldn't be sharing it.
Mm-hmm.
So if stuff from Epstein starts to break, um, this could make for a very interesting election season.
Yeah. Uh, I'm curious. It's actually, I think it has potential to be interesting, anyways, just because of the people running. I mean,
Mhm.
RFK is pretty much neck and neck with Biden right now. You could have. Is it going to be the first time an incumbent lost their primary?
It, oh boy, that's a good question.
Yeah, you're the one that would know better on this.
I can't think of a time off the top of my head where that happened. The closest it came to happening that I know of was Reagan in 76 when he ran against Gerald Ford.
Okay, that they
That's the
now,
closest that I can think of. And he eventually lost, and then of course Ford lost to Carter.
and here's the sad thing about it. I think it's a landslide if RFK was a better orator. He is hard to listen to, and that is the biggest issue with him. Yeah, you want to bring in some of his personal beliefs, which they keep trying to push because yeah, he is overly anti-vax. I will give that.
Hmm.
But his solutions to the problem have nothing to do with his personal opinions.
Hmm.
And in fact, his first answer when he's asked about that is, this is not the front running issue I have. This is, yeah, I want to clean up this relationship, but that's with all agencies.
Yeah.
I want to clean up the FBI. I want to clean up the CIA. I want to clean up the FDA. I want to clean up the CDC. I want to clean up all of these things. My front running thing is not my personal beliefs on this thing. And in fact, I believe these things because of this evidence.
Yes.
And the process I want to put forward is going to be a debate on the evidence.
What we learned about the CDC and the FDA because of COVID, and what we have learned about the FBI because of the Durham report, because of Trump, those are just symptoms of a larger disease.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what he's focusing on.
Fascism.
Here is my I
By definition, not by hyperbole.
I don't have any tinfoil around here, but
Remember, it enhances the signal.
well, maybe that will make me smarter. I
Happened in the
struck
universe now. All right, Ian. Oh,
my
you don't watch
my
Temple. You don't know who
no
Ian is, but
my kind of crazy conspiracy theory that I think has the most chance at being valid is that something is going to come up the powers that be behind the scenes are going to find some way to get Biden out of the race, uh, with that honorably, a valid reason to get Biden out of the race. And now I said this before in the past because I thought they would want Kamala to become president because then she would be harder to beat because she's the incumbent. But the more I listen and read things, the more I think they want Michelle Obama. That buzz is getting a little louder, and it's been going around for a while.
Okay, have you seen this one? I'm willing to be wrong on everything, but at the same time, I think this one actually is a conspiracy that Michelle Obama is Michael. All these videos where it looks like a penis is flopping in their pants and their skirt. And
It's so mean, but I can't stop laughing.
Yeah, if that ends up being true, I'm gonna throw my hands up and just you get on a little rowboat and go out to sea or something. But yeah, I think this one's a conspiracy theory, but it is cracking me up. This is the one that I would put in the probably Photoshop, probably AI modulated video, but at the same time, it would be so hilarious if it's true. And I don't know what the country would do.
Ooh, that'd be fun.
Well, but the whole thing that the one that someone sent me was, would you support a gay presidential candidate? And it was like, we've already had one. It was Barack Obama.
Well, he did wear mom jeans, so
oh yeah,
see him throw out that first pitch. Woo!
no, but I was looking at the top 5 GOP candidates. Who's this Ryan Binkley guy?
Never heard of him.
Never heard of him. Larry
I'm a
Elder?
political nerd.
I don't think he actually put his name in the hat, did he?
I haven't heard any noise about that, no.
Asa Hutchinson?
Some of that may be speculated. Asa Hutchinson.
This was from 2 days ago, this Politico report.
Asa Hutchinson was the former governor of Arkansas before Sarah Huckabee beat him. So I would be. This is the fact that so many of these people you've never heard of and have absolutely no chance just further demonstrates the con of politics as we know it.
These guys I'm reading off are actually declared.
Okay.
Ryan Brinkley, Larry Elder, Asa Hutchinson, Harry Johnson, Vivek Ramaswamy, which I knew about him. He's going to be interesting on the debate stage, that's for sure. Tim Scott's apparently declared now.
Yes.
Okay. These are all maybes, so that's not relevant. Ruled out Ted Cruz. Well, good. Maybe Mike Pence. Yeah. Nikki Haley declared. She's going to lose.
I want Ted Cruz to put his money where his mouth is and run for governor because he's not getting anything done.
That would be a legitimate step.
He's not getting anything done in the Senate, and he's not going to get anything done. But if he believes the things that he says, and he's not just posturing for politics, and he actually believes the things he says and wants to get things done, then run for frickin' governor. You actually have power there.
Yeah, I like some of the things he says, but then he just goes off and does his thing, and I'm like, yeah, DeSantis is still a maybe, of course. Yeah, these I got to look more up on this Binkley guy, Dallas area businessman, pastor.
Never heard of him. All right. Well, we'll get back into the politics more next time because I can't as much as I don't want to dive into this Durham report, it's too important and for all the wrong reasons, for reasons that most people that I've seen are not talking about.
Yeah, remember the Gell-Mann effect.
Yeah,
Yeah,
left or right.
yeah, that's the main thing here. Remember the Gell-Mann effect.
Yeah. Well, I got to get back to work, and people are probably tired of listening to us ramble over over hill and over dale. Uh,
Did we have anything in there to justify the meme you sent me?
Unfortunately not.
Unfortunately not. Okay, so we'll save it for another time. So I'll figure out one for today.
Yeah, we'll have to have some more sexy time talk for that. Um, you could use the one that you sent me, because we're talking about, posers and charlatans, and
Oh,
that
the IG model and the
the great facade that is our federal government. Yeah, that could work for that.
yeah, okay, that'll work. I'll use that one up. Yeah, anything else before we close
Well,
out?
we'll see y'all Friday for New Spring, and we'll see if we can finish it up.
Yep, I don't think there was any disclaimers needed today. We didn't give any health advice or anything along those lines. So we'll see you next time. We'll see you for New Spring.